by each other. We've all seen the pictures of people not doing the right thing, people filling up entire utes full of jerry cans. That's not only selfish behaviour, it's dangerous behaviour as well.
So just take us through what those measures could be if we move into that area.
I'm not going to
go
you don't
through
want to cause a whole lot
panic,
of hypotheticals.
but give us some idea.
Well, I just did, which is people being encouraged more to take
How do you do that?
You send out the message that it is important that people, where they can avoid use of fuel, do so.
You're already doing that, Prime Minister. You've started giving more frequent press conferences. You spoke for a long time today with the Treasurer and the Energy Minister. If you're in stage 3, what does that look like? What are the measures that you can bring in at that stage?
Well, it means stepping up those issues, making sure as well that we conserve fuel wherever possible. The measures need to make sure as well that the fuel gets to where it is most needed.
Did you discuss rationing in National Cabinet?
No.
The word was not mentioned?
No. What we're talking about is measures that aren't mandating.
None of your state counterparts brought up the potential for rationing?
No, we're all talking constructively about how we work through these issues. A range of states, Victoria and Tasmania, have announced free public transport. That will make a difference, of course.
I want to talk to you about President Trump. Obviously, everything now depends on the duration of this war, and most of the signals that we can see point to escalation. You want more certainty from Donald Trump. What do you mean by that?
What I'd like to see is a time frame or a clearer objective. Now, the President said at the beginning of this conflict that it was about 3 things. It was about nuclear weapons and making sure that Iran can't get a nuclear weapon. Certainly agree with that. A worthy objective given the nature of the Iranian regime. Secondly, we wanted to damage Iran's capabilities to attack its neighbours or to assist its proxies in Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis and others as well. Stop the role that it plays around the world, including, of course, we saw attacks here in Australia perpetrated at the behest of the Iranian regime, which is why we expelled the ambassador. But the third was regime change. And I note the President today has said that there has been regime change.
Right, what's your response to him saying that?
Well, there certainly has been a change in personnel.
It's not regime change, is it?
But the structures of the IRGC and the way that they engage is still largely in place, that's clear.
So the President of the United States is wrong, according to you?
No, the President of the United States can define for himself.
He can't have his own facts. We've established that.
What his objectives
Since COVID, you're not entitled to your own facts. Isn't that his own fact, that the regime has changed? You've just described
well, it is a fact that
a regime that has not changed.
It is a fact that the personnel have changed.
It's not the same.
And
know that.
I think that was what the President was referring to. But he can speak for himself. But history has shown us that regime change, and I want to see regime change in Iran, to be very clear. This is an abhorrent regime that oppress its own people, that murder its own people, that engage in international terrorism.
You say you want clearer objectives from him. Tell me, just describe a little bit more clearly what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is I want to see a recognition of the economic damage that this conflict is continuing to result in. And I want to see any objective of what is to be achieved by further conflict rather than negotiation. And I want to see an end or a de-escalation to the conflict there. Now,
Have you communicated those wishes to the President, your ally?
Well, we continue to engage very constructively with the United States. We were very clear that the response of the United States was justified, but it was on the basis of regime change. And I think that largely, as I've said publicly for some period of time, the objectives that were outlined at the beginning of this conflict have been achieved largely. In most cases, not everything reaches 100%, but I think the President is in a position whereby he can claim that he has achieved the objectives that he set out to.
Do you think that the world is better off, given the economic chaos that's been unleashed on the world? Do you think the world is better off for what you've seen over the last 4 weeks?
Well, certainly a weakening of the Iranian regime.
Are we seeing that?
I think it certainly has been weakened. Its capacity to attack its neighbours has been weakened. Its leadership have been changed, and that over a period of time, if you take out people who are senior, then that disrupts the capacity of that regime.
But you don't want to see those decapitation strikes continue, or do you support the United States continuing with those
What
actions?
I want to see is a de-escalation, and what I want to see is a beginning of what will need to occur, which is repairs to the global economy. This has had a devastating impact, and that tail will continue for some time, and quite clearly there is a need to see an end point. I think that's what people want to see, whether they be people in leadership positions or people watching this program. They want to know how this ends and what the circumstances are.
Is this the beginning of a rift between Australia and the United States on the Iran war?
Not at all. We have a very constructive relationship, personally, myself and President Trump. That's my job.
But now you're looking at escalation and you're asking for de-escalation. That sounds like a rift.
Well, my job is to engage respectfully and constructively, and I will continue to do so. The United States remains our most important ally.
Even if they bring more troops, put troops on the ground, escalate the war further, do as President Trump has suggested, take Karg Island or take Iranian oil?
Well, Australia isn't an active participant in this conflict.
Would it be fair to say at this point that it is not in the interests of the Australian people for this war to continue, in your view?
I think it is clearly in the interests of the global community, as it always is. Conflict always has a price, and the conflict has achieved its objectives that were outlined at the beginning, and we want to see, I think people want to see an end point.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Thanks very much.
One of today's measures was targeted at Australia's trucking industry, which depends on diesel fuel. There is another way, the electrification of the trucking fleet. Mike Lorigan reports.
How long has Willetton Transport been operating for?
I would say 50-odd years. Maybe 50-odd years.
For most of that half-century, Bernie Willetton's family have been hauling materials out of Gippsland. When he was a boy, they weathered the oil crisis in the 70s.
It just meant that you just had to sort of dig in and keep going, I suppose. And that's what we're essentially got to do now.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The targeting of energy infrastructure in the Middle East by the US and Israel and Iran. And the choking of the crucial shipping passage, the Strait of Hormuz, has sent the global oil price to alarming levels, which is reverberating through supply chains.
The stable, predictable world of ever-expanding free trade is gone.
In Australia, diesel has shot from $1.80 a litre the day before the war started to more than $3 a litre this week.
Diesel has increased 109% in the last month in terms of its price, and that is a very significant hit for all of our companies.
The price of the diesel, how much has it gone up for you?
Oh, it's about a bit over $1 a litre. Yeah, so it's substantial. This is going to be real hurtful. I don't know how they're going to sustain it, to be perfectly honest.
These supply constraints are putting pressure on small to medium operators like Willetton.
The insolvency rates of small and medium transport companies in Australia has increased from 150 to 175% over the last 3 years.
Is the government and are you preparing for less fuel to be in Australia beyond April?
Well, certainly the government is preparing for all contingencies. Certainly the government is preparing for that. But as we've been saying all the way along, we are well placed in terms of the resilience of our fuel supply system to withstand, what's happening with the price spike.